happy day to you. I don't know when you'll be watching this, so I'm not going to say the day. So you guys, hello. I wanted to come on tonight and just briefly give you a little introduction to what I'm going to be teaching you. Actually, what I'm going to do with this section. So right now, the part of what I'm going to be training you guys on right now is the part of my book that's actually called Part 2. And the book goes into a lot of depth on this. And I want to make sure that you guys know where this stuff is at in the book. So in Part 2, it's called Healthy. And this was all about, really truly being healthy by the way of learning what your immune system, where it's at, really. You've got 60 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut, your small intestines and your large intestines. So one of the things that is really important for people to know is that health begins with your intestinal health. It begins with your immune system. Now, this is a huge part of scientific research and what they have found out about our small and our large intestines, and that the entire small intestinal lining is aligned with immune system cells, okay? So the immune system is in your digestive system. This is 60 to 80% of it. You've got other immune system areas like if you still have your tonsils or lymph nodes and other areas like that, but majority of your immune system is in your gut. Now, one of the things that, the reason my book is called Happy Healthy Fit is because the healthy section is just, it's huge, and there's so much to this. And what I'm going to do tonight is actually post a video that I've already done a huge training on. And it's a training that I did with a master class of people at my yoga studio. And I want you to have that because it goes into depth about what I'm going to talk about today. So that's just like an added bonus. It's really going to cover the next couple of chapters in depth. And so right now we've got chapter 7 is anti-health, you are what you eat. So I want to touch upon this briefly because I did mention it in the last video, a couple of things in the last video. And what I'm also going to touch on briefly is digestive disorders and problems. I'm going to post in the second video for this training module. It's called Gut Health, and it's one of the videos that I offer my clients in the Nutrition and Fat Loss Mastery e-course, because why reteach it when it's already been taught once? So I'm going to post that video for you so you all have access to that one specific video, so that you can see that. And I think that's really important for you. So, okay, what I want to talk to you briefly about before I post that video tonight, you guys, is the standard American diet is pretty much what most people have grown up on. And what does that mean? It's the standard American diet. The acronym is SAD. SAD diet. So this is when the SAD diet really started to happen in the agricultural revolution. In the 30s to, really that's when it began. It's in the 30s when the agricultural revolution really began. Heavy machinery was able to farm bread, corn, and things like that started happening. And tons of companies in our country were born. Kellogg's, General Mills, Nestle, companies like that who actually were making food, which is not food. They were making boxed foods with added chemicals, added ingredients such as gluten and grains, which are anti-nutrients, and high fructose corn syrup, things that were actually not native to the body, and the body didn't know what to do with them. So that is actually when the health of our country started to decline. Now, I say in this chapter, you are what you eat. And another thing, in this training module, I say that food is fuel, not entertainment. Now, that's a big statement, and how true is it in your own life where food has become entertainment? It's like the thing to do. Like, we're gonna go to get groceries, or we're gonna go get ice cream, and not like that's like a huge American pastime is to go get ice cream, right? Now, a whole industry was built around this. And the thing is, that is making food entertainment, okay? So we really just have to get, I don't want to what is it? Like be a buzzkill, you know, with like life and be really rigid with this stuff, because it's stuff that, you know, you're probably going to do for the rest of your life, but to be really aware of what you're doing and why, and remember that food is fuel, it's not entertainment. So sure, you can have entertaining events sometimes that have to do with food, but really be aware of maybe shifting those environments where you're making the entertainment, the food, and make the entertainment healthy, okay? There's been a huge shift in our country going from, you know, the standard American diet to paleo, to a lot of people went on to the vegetarian diet or the vegan diet. Now keto is really popular. But it's always been, it was low fat. In the 70s, it was a low fat craze, and people like are always going to change the foods that they're making around holidays and festivals, and they're going to want to be more healthy based on what's in style, right? So people will bring a keto dish to the holidays this year, and they'll brag about that it's keto, and then that will be the topic, you know. But back in the 70s, it was, this is low fat. It was low fat. And so people were consuming sugars because it was low fat. And what happened then was the start of the obesity epidemic in our country, is the low fat kick that our country got onto. Now, remembering that it's easy just to kind of shift those recipes and the foods that you're taking to parties, I always recommend to my clients that if you're going to go to a party, take something that you can eat and eat beforehand. Take something that is healthy for you, and you know it is good for you. It's something you're going to want to eat, and it's something you're going to want to share. And here's the tip. You don't ever have to tell anybody it's healthy, okay? Because this is where I learned the hard way with my family, is I replaced ingredients. And so I made the same old foods like pancakes, but I just made them with different ingredients. And so just because I made them with different ingredients that weren't out of a box, which was their comfortable go-to norm, they freaked out. And just a couple of my family members did, and it was mainly the cooks in the family, the ones who are overweight, and they're the cooks in the family. And I just wanted to do something nice for my nieces and nephews, and make pancakes that were healthy, that had, that were paleo pancakes, and they're literally made with like bananas and eggs. And I remember one of my family members saying, "Not everybody eats the way you do, Liz." And I was like, this is you. Yeah, you do. You do eat bananas and you do eat eggs, and I'm just happen to magically make these into pancakes, and so they're good for you. And it was just because it was not normal that they kind of balked at it, right? And they put up a wall against it. So what I always say is, make what you can eat and take it, and you can offer it. You don't have to say anything about it. If they say, "What is it?" you can say, "It's such and such casserole," or it's pancakes, and you don't need to say anything more, because if they're really interested and they really want your recipe, they're going to ask you for it. And that's when you can be open, and you can be like, "Well, these are actually really healthy, and I am on an amazing all natural food diet, and so I eat real foods, and these are made with bananas and eggs." Okay? And so they'll be like, "What? Tell me more." So it's just the way you approach things sometimes. And I really want to just, give you that tip right out of the gate here. Now, one thing that I mentioned in our last video was talking about insulin sensitivity. And I want to talk upon the subject because I know that I don't really talk about it in the next video that you're about to see. One of the things that's really important for you to know is that grains are an anti-nutrient. So what that means is, and also lectins, L-E-C-T-I-N-S, lectins, those are anti-nutrients. And what those are is a protective part of a plant that keeps like bugs away, insects away. So it actually protects what is inside that, that shell. Okay, so grains have these outer shells, and they have what's called, it's called an anti-nutrient. For example, a almond shell, like the actual coating on the almond, is a lectin. And also, so is the coating on the sweet potatoes. So these are parts, now they're not always problematic for everybody, but you guys, this is why this section is so huge, because if you're really sick and you've got digestive issues or autoimmune disorders, is really what I meant to say. If you've got autoimmune disorders, you absolutely have to really focus on your digestion and really getting crystal clear on what you're eating. And in the back of my book, I've got some guides for you, going from the standard American diet all the way to the figureFIT paleo food guide. And it's important for you to know that this is here for you, and this is where you can begin, okay? So if you're sick and you've got any sort of autoimmune disorders, constipation, acne, eczema, let me get into that here real quick. Celiac disease, arthritis, even asthma, allergies. This is one of the big ones that a lot of people are like, oh, it's just seasonal allergies. You guys, you don't have to have seasonal allergies. I fixed mine. Mine are gone. And the only thing that actually ever triggers me is if my diet is out of whack. Now, I had allergies my entire life up until I was 32 years old. Up until I cut out foods and I started eating from, and if you read my book, you can read my whole story about how I healed myself. And I started off with a sugar detox, which is one of the products we have here at figureFIT. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the shop page on the figureFIT website and get that detox. That's where I began. I started to cut out all the sugars, and then I started to cut out gluten and dairy and grains. And that was what I did next. And I did that, and like I never looked back. So do I have bread occasionally? Yes. Did I cut it out then and eliminated it for like a year before I ever had bread again? Yes. I just don't buy those things because they make you sick, okay? I cut them out. I cut dairy out. Now, I have butter these days, like real butter. Now, butter is a pure fat, so it doesn't really have lactose in it. So it doesn't usually have any of the problematic nutrients in a full fat dairy, okay? However, some people do have problems with dairy. So in the beginning, you cut out all like gluten, dairy, grains. And if you just go to the book, the guide in the back of my book, you'll see what you can and cannot eat. You'll just see the food list. You're like, okay, this is what I eat from. And if you've got anything in your refrigerator that is not on this list, you got to get rid of it. You got to get rid of it. Okay. So let me go back to this. IBS, infertility, Hashimoto's, lupus, migraines, Raynaud's, seizures, tendinitis, obesity, multiple sclerosis. I know of a lady who healed herself from multiple sclerosis by going paleo first, then doing a specific carbohydrate diet, and I talk about that in my book as well. And in the back of the book, there are foods that are listed that have Fodmaps that are called nightshades, and those are inflammatory foods. And so if you have these autoimmune disorders, it's really important for you to reach out in the group page and just talk to me about it. Just so you know, so nightshades are things like cayenne pepper, tobacco, eggplants, not black pepper, but cayenne pepper, tomatoes, And those are inflammatory foods, always. So they create inflammation in the body when you eat them. And a lot of times you got to cut those out if you have an autoimmune disorder. Any of the stuff that I just mentioned, okay? Fibromyalgia, let me go back to this list. Eczema, depression, even depression is linked to digestive health issues and problems. Bursitis, colitis, endometriosis, heart disease. So one of the things I want to ask you is, here are some signs of digestive disorders. Constipation or diarrhea, gas, any sort of gas after you eat, belching, farting, all of that is typically not normal. So if you are tooting, you've probably had something that your body is not okay with, okay? Because really the only foods that may cause a little bit of stomach, like whole foods, real foods that may cause a little bit of gas, could be like broccoli and cauliflower, but that might mean you need to go through a healing and get rid of a lot of the other foods, and then eventually that broccoli or cauliflower won't do that to you, okay? But sometimes it will. But most foods that make you have gas are problematic, and you should get rid of them, okay? Chronic conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis or anything I mentioned earlier. Okay, any problem after eating. For example, when I used to eat, I knew that I had problems with food because I couldn't breathe very well. Something in the food made it so that I couldn't breathe. It was like I just really couldn't get the breath in. After I would eat, I'd get super stuffy. And I was like, I realized it because I would be fine before the food. And then after I ate the food, it was just an instant stuffiness in my nose, you know, just kind of like pressure here. And I would have like, let's just say, this is one story, this is one example, the ranch dip at like a party or something. I'd go to the veggie tray, and that ranch dip would make that happen to me. It would make me stuffy, it would make me not be able to breathe. So even as good as I was trying to be, as healthy as I was trying to be, that alone, that standard American food that is man-made has a ton of preservatives, a ton of things in it that were problematic for me. And if I want to have the veggie tray, I've got to have pure ingredients that are made with real foods. And I've had to learn how to make my own dips. Like I've made guacamole as a dip. I've made other things as dips. And I just don't do those, the ranch dips anymore. Okay, so that was one example. Oh, this is a perfect example. One time somebody brought those Laffy Taffies to my yoga studio, and when I was a kid, I loved them. And they brought this huge, and I'm like, I'm an adult for crying out loud. And like, they brought this big container that they bought at Sam's Club. And I'm just like, was mad at myself after this because, like, seriously, I'm an adult, and I'm like, and I know better. That's the thing. I know that is junk. And it was something that was like never in my diet. I wouldn't even touch that before, but this one day I made an exception. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll have it. I'm going to have every color. I'm going to take the banana. I'm going to take the berry. I'm going to take this, and this. And I ate them. They were like the small ones. And I ate pretty much almost every single one of them on the way home. There's like 5 of them. And you guys, literally within, like, by the time I was home, I have a 13-minute drive. I was stuffy already. I was stuffy for the next 45 minutes while my body tried to process that crap and get it out of me. And my body is like, it just starts shutting down. So if I'm, just imagine if the food is doing that to us, what is it really truly doing to your cells on the inside of your body? Okay, so that's a couple examples for you. Now, I want to talk to you about the gut. I do talk about the gut in the video, so I'm not going to go there, but I want you to watch that next video. It talks about the gut, talks about the gut lining, it talks about leaky gut, and one thing I don't think I talk about in that video is SIBO, or SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. Now, you might get SIBO if you go overseas and you drink the water, or you have maybe like a soup and it's got that water. So there are different kinds of bacteria in the water in a foreign country that you're just not used to. Your body is not used to it. And it's a bacteria that will make you sick. It will put you on the toilet. You will get what I call leaky butt for days, as you are like, your body is just cleaning out and it's just not used to this bacteria. So this is called small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. Now, what happens when you get SIBO is that bacteria starts eating, and it can last a really long time. That bacteria starts to eat on the good foods that you are putting in your body. It is actually feeding off of the good foods that are in your body, and you are unable to ingest any sort of high quality nutrients because that bacteria is actually feeding off of the foods that you're eating. Huge. So a couple of signs that could show that you have SIBO would be abdominal bloating, like a lot, and maybe very painful, abdominal pain, abdominal cramps, gas, diarrhea, constipation, heartburn, GERD. So when people say they have heartburn, I always look at them and go, there's no reason for you to have heartburn. There's something going on. Hands down, something is going on. They may have SIBO, they may have leaky gut, that food they're eating is problematic, and it may be a couple of foods reacting upon each other because of what's going on in the digestive system. So if somebody has heartburn, or they have anything, or they're taking medications to put a Band-Aid on the problem, there's a deeper underlying issue that must be fixed first, okay? And I'll get to that. But how do we do that? We eat off the food list in the back of the book. Okay. Nausea Candida. Candida is a like a yeast overgrowth in women or men. They can get it as like thrush in their mouth, like a white tongue. Women get it in the forms of a yeast infection or fatigue. Very, very, very fatigue. Okay, so some likely causes of SIBO are food poisoning, especially during foreign travel, exposure to contaminated water, pathogens that you may ingest or be near, previous surgery involving your small intestines, medications including antibiotics, and even NSAIDs, which are things like Advil or pain relievers. And it does say on there that it's an NSAID, N-S-A-I-D. Okay, conditions that reduce gut motility. So like if you're constipated, or you're eating cheese and, you know, like it's just your stuff's not moving, that can cause this as well. And celiac disease. So SIBO can cause leaky gut. Okay, it can be the start of leaky gut. And leaky gut is actually, I'll talk upon it really quickly, but the next video will really go into depth. You've got like these lining, this intestinal wall in your small intestine. It's like these little finger-like things that are really tight, and they're called villi. They're little tight junctions that as the food is like passing through, what's happening is the autoimmune cells and all the cells here, the little villi, are actually like, they're like little hungry things that are eating the food that you ate. So in the small intestines, that's where everything is broken down and absorbed. It's only in the small intestine. It's not in the large. That's actually moving everything out towards the colon. So in the small intestines, the villi are like feeding off of the food over here, okay? And they're taking the nutrients from the food that you ate, all the good vitamins, all the minerals, the protein, the carbohydrates, the fats. They're taking it in, and they're then sending it over on this side over here, and this side is your bloodstream. And this is where those amino acids go into your bloodstream from the protein that you eat. The glucose is going into your bloodstream from the carbs that you ate, and the fatty acids are going into your bloodstream from the fats that are over here. So the microvilli are taking all of this food over into the bloodstream to send it to areas where it needs to go. And the body knows what to do with it once it's in the bloodstream. Now the problem, what occurs is that when those tight junctions, when there's inflammation in your digestive system, in your small intestines because of SIBO, you get, or the foods that you eat, you get leaky gut, okay? So leaky gut is this. Those tight junctions are no longer tight junctions, okay? They're inflamed. Just think of like when you get a cut and it's swollen and it's inflamed, it's like red and it's open and it's exposed. Well, that's what's happening with those tight junctions. They're now inflamed. And so all this food over here that's supposed to be just being broken down, its whole particles are getting through these tight junctions over to the other side and getting in the bloodstream. Now, when these particles of food and these foreign particles get in your bloodstream, what happens is your body starts to build antibodies, and it starts to attack the foods, those foreign particles that are in the bloodstream, because they're foreign. Your body is like, this is not a fatty acid, this is not a glucose, this is not an amino acid, what is this thing? And so it starts to build antibodies that start attacking your own bloodstream. And the more antibodies that you get, the sicker you're going to be, okay? So this is, so you guys, this can cause everything I mentioned earlier. So like fibromyalgia, Parkinson's disease, chronic renal failure, hypothyroidism, rheumatoid arthritis, liver disease, pancreatic insufficiency, diverticulitis, diabetes, Crohn's disease, rosacea, restless leg syndrome, allergies, asthma, celiac disease. All of these things are attributed to having leaky gut. Every single autoimmune disorder has leaky gut. So what does that say? That says that if you heal your leaky gut, chances are that autoimmune disorder is going to go away. And that's why so many people have healed themselves by doing these elimination diets and getting rid of those foods that are problematic. Getting rid of these foods. And let me go to the back of my book real quick. Oh, I went too far. Okay. I've got this. I mentioned this before a couple of weeks ago in a video, that I've got this daily food target guide in my book. Now over here and up here and then down here, here and here. So all the way over here, this is the bottom of the list. This is like the standard American diet foods that you don't want to be eating. And so if you're eating any of these foods, you got to get rid of them, and you got to graduate up this list. Really, I always just say, if you're eating any foods in these categories, try to get up to this list. And then once you graduate from this list all the way, you go straight to this guide, the figureFIT food guide, and you live from this food guide, okay? So, for example, I call this like the ladder, okay? So down here you got poor foods, fair, good, better, and best. And so I do say here, in the poor food category, eliminate from your diet or only have occasionally. So you guys, this down here would be like those ice cream runs. Have an ice cream run maybe like once or twice a summer. Like make it something that, yes, it's going to be entertainment in that case, right? Or don't, and just make your own ice cream at home. I've got the recipes in our page, and do something different. Just do a different kind of, like, have ice cream night, you know, and just do something completely different. And okay, so that's how we start to convert here, you guys. And let me go back here. Okay. So a couple questions here for you. You know, actually, I'm not going to go through these questions, but what I want to say to you is just a couple of these. Like, how do you feel most of the time? How's your energy throughout the day? How much fat do you have on your body compared to muscle? I'm going to talk about that real quick. How's your appetite? Are you always craving sugary foods? Because if so, revisit the last video on sleep, because it might be a sleep problem, or it could be just an out of balance, gut microbiome, which is your gut, the small intestines, and the microbiome is all of the cells and the lining and everything. It's the whole, it's like I want to say it's like an economy. Economy? No. Community. It's a community. It's like it's got its own economy in there. So literally, like, everything in your gut is working together or it's working against you. Like, it's all trying to work for you, but we got to be for it. We got to be feeding it. We got to be consuming the foods that are good for us. Okay. Let's see here. Now, I want to say that this is a couple things more, is that your cells in your gut, those microvilli, okay, the microvilli on the villi, I want to just call them, on the edge of the cells, like as you start to heal the leaky gut, as you start to take those inflammatory foods away, not just the inflammatory foods, not just the nightshades, but anything that is problematic, so grains, anti-nutrients, dairy, sometimes eggs are problematic for certain people, so you gotta like kind of heal, take all the other stuff out first and do it for a minimum of 6 weeks, minimum, and then you can assess where you're at. And I never say, yeah, bring that stuff back in, because it's not good for you. So get it out for 6 weeks, and then let's say you notice, like for example, you notice that you kind of get stuffy after you eat raspberries, okay? There's something there. There's something that you got to look into on that, because there could be some sort of nutrient in the raspberry that you're reacting to. So it doesn't mean you can never have raspberries again. It means you have to fix your gut first, okay? And then after you have been on this, elimination diet for quite some time, and you've been following the guide in the back of this book, and you're eating from those foods, another thing I want you to know that is Fodmaps. You might have heard me say specific carbohydrate diet. Now, the specific carbohydrate diet means that there are specific carbohydrates that you absolutely cannot have. And in the back of my book, these are italicized, and they're called Fodmaps, okay? They're not italicized. They have a little asterisk, okay? Now, Fodmaps are things like broccoli, mangoes, blackberries, apples, peaches, pears, watermelon, mushrooms, dandelion greens, cabbage, cauliflower, artichokes. What else? Mainly, you guys, Fodmaps are fruit and vegetables. They're not going to be like a meat or nuts or seeds. It's fruit or a vegetable, okay? Those are called Fodmaps. And the acronym here for Fodmaps is fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. Fodmap is the acronym when you break it down. So what these are is foods that are they're good foods, they're real foods, they're whole foods, but they're poorly digested in your small intestines, and sometimes some of them take longer than others, therefore giving that bacteria more time to feed off of that good food, okay? That was my case. So I started with my sugar detox. I went fully paleo. I got rid of the grains, got rid of the dairy. I was that way for a long time, but I was doing something not very good. I always had a sweet tooth. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to eat healthy, but I'm going to make my sweets healthy sweets. And I did, and I had all the good foods. But you guys, what happened was, as I created an out of balance gut microbiome, because I was eating things like that are good for me, but all the time. Honey, I was having berries, I was having almost the same foods all the time. So broccoli, apples. So I was eating good foods, but you guys, I was out of balance because I was eating those all the time. So what happened was I got candida and I got chronic fatigue, and I was beat in the afternoons, and there was something wrong. So I dove into my materials and I started researching, and I started learning that I just started researching more about digestion and what might be going on. And as I looked into everything, I realized, oh my gosh, I am completely eating all these foods all of the time. And it's no wonder that my body is out of balance. And so I cut out all the Fodmaps, and I got completely better. And the chronic fatigue went away, the candida went away. It never came back. But see, I was having candida over and over again for almost a couple of years. And it wasn't until I got serious fatigue in the afternoons that I knew something bad was happening and I needed to fix it. So I completely cut out all the Fodmaps, and I did more things like this. I did a candida detox, I did a candida flush, I did all of these things to try and get rid of it, but nobody ever talked about the Fodmaps. And any of these people who had these diets that I was following, I just kept getting sick over and over again. And I knew, based on my background in nutrition science, I just knew that something I am eating is causing this. So I just kept researching, and I figured out that it was the Fodmaps, and that some of those things take longer to break down. So here is what it means. So mono, di, and poly. Mono means 1, di means 2, and poly means 3. So those are saccharides, and a mono breaks down quick. A di takes longer, and a poly takes 3 times as long to break down in your gut. So Fodmaps are monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides, and they just sometimes take longer to break down. Okay, so long story short, I can eat those things now, but my diet is completely balanced, and I eat something different every single week. It is so important to not go to the grocery store with this just standard, I'm always buying these foods and having them in my kitchen. That is such a habit for most people, is just to have the staples in their refrigerator, you know. But what is really important for you is to look at the different recipes that I post in the page every week and pick something different, pick different ingredients. Try something new that maybe you don't ever eat, like a jicama, or if you had sweet potatoes and steak last week with mushrooms, then the following week have zucchini, and maybe have a little bit of honey in one of your dishes. You know, little bits of things like that. But always having different types of things is going to keep your body healthy, okay? I like to say that we need to have a rainbow of foods, and based on what's in season, but always keep things different and change it up all of the time. Okay, so I talked about that. Now, the last thing I want to mention, because I mentioned this early on, and I forgot to bring it up. I forgot to talk about it here today. And I talked about in the last video, which is insulin sensitivity. Now, some people are like, why am I sick? Why can I not lose weight? Now, if you have been a carbohydrate junkie, and your story maybe resonates like mine does, and you really liked having sweets, or you're just, you know, you like the easy foods are the carbs. They just are. Like, the foods that we actually have to make are the good foods, and the easy stuff is the carbohydrates. So it's just quick fix foods, and those are the reasons why we get overweight, why we get sick. It's not that you can't have them, but you've got to make sure you have different carbohydrates, and you also earn them. I'm going to talk about that in one of the upcoming videos, maybe even in the video that I post here today with this one. Okay, so when you eat something sweet, you release insulin. Your pancreas releases insulin, and when that happens, there are insulin receptor sites on your cells, on the surface of the cells. And so what happens when a person is becoming insulin resistant, and what that means is your body is no longer responding to the insulin. And the reason that happens is because there's been a constant carbohydrate drip. You're always eating carbohydrates. And so what happens is your let me get really sciencey here. Okay, so insulin starts blocking the fat burning enzyme lipase. So you can no longer burn fat, and you continue to gain weight until the fat cells become resistant themselves. So what happens is the pancreas pumps out even more insulin because the body is not responding to it because it didn't work the first time. So the pancreas is like, well, it didn't work, I'm going to keep pumping this out. So it pumps out more and more, and then it just makes the situation worse and worse and worse. So a communication breakdown has happened. And since the receptor sites on the end of the cells are no longer even responding to insulin, what happens is they're no longer letting glucose into the cell and into the liver cells or the muscle cells. And this breakdown actually also prevents amino acids from the protein that you're eating from entering the cells as well, which is detrimental. And this causes your body to turn to its own already made muscle tissues to break down those amino acids. And you never want that to happen. And so what happens is it turns to that, the stored muscle tissue in your body, to break that down into glucose. And I mentioned that in the last video, is that what happens is when your muscle starts breaking down muscle into glucose, it's called gluconeogenesis. And that is when there's a massive communication breakdown in your body. Because see, here's the thing, you've got your skeleton, you've got your muscle tissue, and then you've got your organs, and you've got your blood. Now see, the glucose in your body, the carbs and the fat cells, oh, and then you have fat. So, but the carbs and the carbs, let me just stick with the carbs for a second, is something that you only need a little bit of. But most of these humans of the world are eating so much carbohydrates. And the thing is, we need to be fueling our skeletal frame, our bones, okay? And we need to be fueling our muscles. So we fuel our muscles by having protein, because protein is made, muscles are made out of protein, but muscles are made out of specifically what protein breaks down into, which is called an amino acid, okay? The amino acid is the frame of the cell. Okay, that's like the house. Now the glucose and the insulin transports the amino acids in and out of that brand new fresh house that was just made. Okay, so it's really important. I'll get more into that in the next in the video that I post here in a little bit. So what happens is that when you have been on this constant carbohydrate diet, you're actually in a catabolic state because your body is turning against itself to start to break down, which is completely awful. You experience low energy, you're hungry all the time, you can't lose weight, you can't sleep very well, you have no desire to work out because you're tired, and the cycle just continues and continues and continues. So what you have to do, so on top of that, your liver becomes insulin resistant, and it can no longer convert your thyroid hormones. There's a couple of you who really need to hear this. So what happens here is your liver becomes insulin resistant as well, and it can no longer convert thyroid hormones T4 into T3, and as a result you start to get thyroid problems. Okay, this is all because of a carbohydrate excess overload diet. And so what also happens is when your thyroid is out of whack, you have metabolism issues, you gain weight, you store fat, and you just can't seem to get healthy. Okay, so then what happens is eventually the pancreas burns out, and you can't produce insulin anymore, and then you get insulin dependent and you are type 2 diabetic. That's how this happens. So it's this chronic, sorry guys, I keep getting a notification. So here's what you do. You got to cut out the carbohydrates, and I talk all about this in the Nutrition and Fat Loss Mastery e-course. And I would highly, if this video is calling to you and it's really touching to you, how to eat and how to become a master of your nutrition, what kind of macronutrients you need on a day-to-day basis, how to become a fat burner, how many carbs you need to eat daily, how much protein you need to have daily, how much fat you need to have daily. That's all going to be in the Nutrition and Fat Loss Mastery e-course, which you can get at any time. Just head to the website and click on the programs page and you'll see that there. And I would highly recommend that you purchase that program, you guys, because it's a lifetime purchase. You have it for as long as the website's there. And it will teach you everything you need to know, not only you, but your family members, your close family members. You can help them with their macros. You can teach them this information. And this is something this is a one-time purchase, and it's knowledge that you've always needed to know, and it's knowledge that you will have for the rest of your life. Because here's the thing, you're not gonna grow taller. Your height and your age is what this is all based off of. So your height and your current weight, and then your age. And then what happens is we take all that information of where you are right now, we create your macronutrients, then I start teaching you how to eat, when to eat what. And all of that is broken down in the Nutrition and Fat Loss Mastery e-course. So you guys, I'm gonna post that other video. And that's all I have for today. So I'm gonna look here and see if there's any questions. And if not, then I'm gonna hang up, and then I'm gonna post that other video so you guys can see that as well. Feel free, take your time watching these two. These are very in-depth modules, and what's really important to know is that you've got, not only is that guide in the back of my book, you guys, it's on the website. So it's the figureFIT food guide. So it's on the website. You always have this available to you. Always try to make sure that you're eating a rainbow of foods, and pick a different recipe every week that I post on Saturdays in the member page. And, you know, just start to take care of yourself, your body, your health, and remember that this is really where your health begins. It's by taking care of your small intestines and your gut microbiome, okay? All right, you guys, so much love to you. Thank you for being here tonight, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.